Alright guys, HyDra here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The new LA Thieves team calling out some of the other CDL franchises for not geolocating potentially where they should. It was a big drama last year with the Vancouver Surge team. That team based up in Vancouver, they weren't especially happy with the ping environment they found themselves in for online Call of Duty play. The Thieves guys say, look, you're simply not serious if you aren't taking this in the right direction, giving some credence to the idea of all of those Surge guys going a very different direction. Some drama as well with ZooMaa suggesting that, look, HyDra and aBeZy might not be all that as an SMG duo. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. This Classics 4v4, $4,000 throwback Black Ops 2 LAN I think is happening today. And we got a couple of scrims. Speaking of the Thieves guys, we've got Kenny in here. Attach. Gunless was in the corner. What's that? Major Maniac. We've got a Quip. We've got Doug. I'm actually buzzing to see Doug playing in this one. They're representing a couple of classic Call of Duty teams. So excited to see how this one plays out. Of course, accuracy there as well. Some of these guys went to the Call of Duty early gameplay test a few days ago. We'll discuss what's happening next on that slightly later today. This is also kind of interesting, right? It was a couple of years ago now that Drazah chose to go to FaZe over OpTic, and I think that most people are pretty happy about this decision. Not just the OpTic fans, but also I do think that Drazah, his personality, and yeah, not to say that it wouldn't have gone well with him on OpTic, I think that it quite possibly would have done. But I think Drazah's personality, like, it just fits the FaZe mold very well. He's kind of built to be a bit of a villain. That's where FaZe have been over the last couple of years. So I think for the community, it's good that Drazah ended up on FaZe. He did have the OpTic offer, we think, at the time. They wanted him to come in. You know, there were some rumours as to what money they were offering him, but he expected FaZe would give him more championships and more prize earnings. Of course, that's not been the case, right? OpTic have won back-to-back champs, and as a result, they've made a load more money. Now, if Drazah was there, would they have had the same result? It is a good question. Of course, the team environments, the way things have gone would have been very different, right? If he'd have joined instead of Kenny going into the Modern Warfare 3 season, would that team have been as good? Maybe, maybe not. But also, you know, who knows what would have happened, right? How that relationship would have ended out. Would it have worked with Pred, with Dashy, with Shotzzy as it turned out to be? The following year, would the Pred drama still have happened? Would they have gone and found Mercules, right? Like, it's a different timeline, and who knows if, okay, it's difficult to say, oh, if Drazah joined OpTic, they would have also, you know, won the 2 rings with him, and he would have won more money as a result. You know, I think Drazah's done still perfectly fine, let's be honest, over the last couple of seasons. He's still won a handful of championships. Maybe FaZe Vegas can start to turn that around going into the upcoming season with their new branding. Speaking of OpTic, it was on this day, yesterday, 2018, the Dashy joined OpTic Gaming. So he's been there the whole time. Kind of remarkable, the ups and downs of Dashy with OpTic, because there were a couple of times he was there. Then, I mean, he was technically also still there during Modern Warfare 19 in the 2020 season when he was on OGLA. Technically, Dashy is like the only guy to have never left in that period, because Hex and Scump and whatever, they did the Chicago Huntsman thing for a little while. Okay, obviously that was the real OpTic, OGLA was the fake OpTic, but interesting that Dashy has represented OpTic as a brand in whatever form you want to describe that in for all of that time period. And yeah, there was a couple of times he was benched, dropped, at risk of being out of the team entirely. But it all worked out. Scump retired. Dashy realised he had to lock in. And we've seen what's happened over the last couple of years. So I thought that was quite the throwback, really. Dashy being undoubtedly one of the absolute veterans of the league at this point. Drazah was playing some Charles with TJ. I just wanted to quickly comment on TJ because we have no current rumours as to where he might potentially go. We're going to discuss in a second what Thieves have to say about some of these other organisations and what they are cooking, or certainly not cooking, for the upcoming CDL seasons. But most of the teams, we think we have a decent idea. TJ hasn't really been linked particularly anywhere. Of course, he ended up on the Falcons at the World Cup. He was on the Ravens before that and last year as well, and has been pretty solid over the last couple of seasons. Maybe there's a possibility that Ravens end up running it back there. We haven't got a further update on what's happening with the Ravens space station gaming potential sale, buyout, whatever the case is. So until that's confirmed, we can only speculate as to what's going to happen there and what space station, or even if it stays as the Ravens, might potentially decide to do. We've heard basically nothing from either of those organisations in some time as to what happens next. The only other org, really, is Surge, and Surge, with all the success they had last season, we think we have a decent idea what the other franchises are going to decide to do. is TJ going to get a spot back this year, right? There's only about 8 spots still to fill, and there is a possibility that some of the guys on the Omit team, right? Let's not forget, there's still that whole Omit team, Vivid, Matt, Craze, and Mamba, that did a great job at the World Cup, and they won everything in challenges before then. They're also going to be on the radar, for sure, for some of these teams. So Rostermania, I would say, still has a fair bit more to give. But let's talk about the Thieves guys. They sat down with that podcast. They talked about a few things. There's also a new general manager. So Corey, who's been with them for a little while, he's been promoted to the general manager of their Call of Duty team. I know that Novus did that job for quite some time. It's interesting, right? If you're the GM of 100 Thieves COD, like LA Thieves, what are you doing all day? Like, I do wonder these questions, because if you're a team that's further down the field, then look, you have to be thinking a lot about who are the players next up on the radar, right? Who are the top guys in challenges to potentially look for? Do we need to consider some sort of a change? But when you're LA Thieves, there's absolutely no intention to do anything like that. So, I don't know, I find it interesting to see what you actually do as a general manager of a team that is meant to be a super team God squad. You're certainly not going to intend to make changes to that roster mid-season. So, I guess you've got to find some other stuff to do. But it's also good to keep an eye on upcoming prospects. And he says, look, he's got more big things, more future projects on the way as well. But they sat down for their podcast. They talked about quite a few things. Zoom was commenting on a couple of things as well that we'll certainly discuss here in a second. They're talking a fair bit about Surge, and Surge, what a result this season that they had, given expectations. I think going into the year, look, they had Hixie at the start of the year, they brought in Neptune, then they actually became seriously good. It was Neptune, Nastie, Abuzah, 04, and as a result of their excellent season, 04 and Abuzah have got the chance on FaZe. Neptune, we think, is going to Gentlemates. Nastie, we think, is going to Boston. There was a maybe option there for Toronto, but it doesn't look like that's going to be happening as it stands. But Surge, they made 4 grand finals last year. They had multiple chances to win championships. I think they might have made 5 if you consider the minor at the start of the season. Managed to lose all of them, of course, which is devastating. But the big drama with Surge at the start of the season, for sure, was actually about their ping situation, the fact that they were playing out of Vancouver. So Surge, the ownership over there, they've moved them from Seattle to Vancouver, and the players were set to play out of there as well. And that was not the most optimal scenario. So I'll share a couple of clips here, including this one, where ZooMaa is talking about the new duo, right? The aBeZy, HyDra, SMG duo, how good that might potentially be. It's always difficult to say until you've seen a duo in the flesh, in the server, to know how they're going to get on. Obviously, on paper, aBeZy and HyDra is pretty deadly, right? Pretty devastating. Is it Simp aBeZy? Is it, HyDra Kismet? Whatever you want to say. Is it Shotzzy Huke? There's also a good argument out there now. It's certainly up there, I would say, on paper, and it should be pretty devastating. But ZooMaa makes an interesting point that, look, Prime ZooMaa, Prime Scump is different gravy.
I'm gonna be honest. I think I'm slamming this sub duo. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I don't know. Like, I think if you get me in my prime in the past and you give me Scump in his prime, I think if you get me in my prime and Scump in his prime, I think we're slamming this sub duo. I'm gonna be honest.
Bang spawn.
Hey, man.
Who gonna get?
They had 3.
They probably should have won. Bro, they probably should have won champs finals.
I thought that.
They should.
Was the one
But like, they're just like.
Wait,
bro,
did they get
just
what? No,
They
they
had 4-0 at EWC too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like,
Yo, that's gotta
I'm
be
telling you,
insane.
that's like somebody was arguing with me that Neptune is going to look at this year. It's a successful year. I'm like, no,
they didn't win once.
they didn't win once. They're like, he started in challenges. That doesn't matter. Nobody wants to nobody thinks in their head if you're a pro, you're supposed to be in challengers. So therefore, he expecting to be on the pro team. They get on the pro team and then they make finals. Once you get second, your standards go up.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, Neptune did make a statement though this year. He did. You know what I mean? Like, he did come out of challengers, and I'm sure Neptune, like, Kenny's right in the aspect where, like, pros, like, they're playing for first, right? Like, nobody's really playing for second place. You know what I mean? But you do got to give credit to Neptune because, I mean, he did come out of challengers and, like, he was, like, a top player, like, he was actually really good.
Like a little taste of a win.
Bro,
every
lot of
team
teams.
not being in Dallas, they're just scamming.
100%. Because now,
I don't know about every team. I don't know.
Pretty
That
sure.
FaZe shit was.
Oh yeah, besides that.
I know y'all had the best shit. They had the best shit. I know. That dark fire. I know.
FaZe?
They got the best.
I knew they were gulling, bro. They would be on one ping. That shit's not flinch. You know how it's usually like 1, 2.
Yeah.
That shit's 1.
That's what
that
I
I would
shit's
watch
going to
his
0
stream, it
almost.
would
Bro.
be 0.
Yeah,
I'm like
Be on 0.
they're flickering to 1, not 2. They're flickering
No,
to
he's
1.
not. He's not 0. You see nothing moving. I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, his bullets must be hitting, right? Let me watch this. Let me watch these hates right here.
Ew.
Wow, 53 and 20, nice.
Nah, Atlanta internet's actually not bad, low key.
Yeah.
And like where I lived, I was like, I think where I lived, I was like near the like actual server too. Like I was like
You
closer to
guys
it.
were.
But like
That
I live
server.
far. I live like 30 minutes away from the facility. So like if I ever streamed, I was always streaming at home. I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
streamed at the facility.
But like Vancouver's throwing online. They got to be throwing.
bro, I don't know why they want to live in Vancouver or like why their team is making them live there. That is insane.
That's got to be the worst spot too.
Bro, I
That's
would-
worse than like anywhere. LA. That's got to be worse
They
than
put
like
on
LA.
40 every time.
Bro, how are they?
40
I don't
ping.
know. I'd lose my.
I just start
I'd lose
forfeiting.
my-
So out of interest, what are you guys taking? Prime ZooMaa, Prime Scump, or this current duo on the Thieves? I guess you've also got to say, well, all right, is it Prime HyDra, Prime aBeZy, or Prime ZooMaa, Prime Scump? Look, Prime ZooMaa was phenomenal in Advanced Warfare, and Prime Scump is basically the best player of all time. So I actually do get the argument from ZooMaa to say, look, yeah, maybe not today. If ZooMaa and Scump were going to hop back into the server today, yeah, okay, I am taking a HyDra and aBeZy. But all time, I get it, right? Now, look, is he slamming this sub-duo? Probably not. Maybe a bit of hyperbole, but still, I like the discussion that was had anyway. The other thing to get into, though, for sure, is around this. So Nastie tweeted this out, and I tried to find a couple of other tweets. I'm sure they're out there. But anyway, Nastie back in October said playing 60 ping on this game is hell. Now, this, just the general theory, and there were plenty of other tweets like this that I could have found during the season, but this basically gets the point across that a lot of the time during this regular season, the Surge guys, I remember comments around probably December, January, they were playing online from Vancouver and they knew they were pretty good, but they were kind of struggling online because they were playing on massive ping. They were playing against teams from Texas, and because they were based in Vancouver, the servers they were getting were not optimal. Their practice was not optimal as a result of that. And it was putting them in a hard position. Now, to the credit of Surge, they still turned up to LAN, and the start of the season with Hixie wasn't so good. But once they got Neptune, all of a sudden, yeah, their play online was at times very solid, but it was never quite as good as they managed on LAN. So there definitely was some level of truth to the idea that their practice was suboptimal because they were doing it from Vancouver in a difficult ping situation. But Surge, as an organization, you know, that is what it is, right? And it's kind of a known thing, at least as it stands. If you want to go and play for the Surge, you are going to play out of Vancouver right now. And that is a concern for many players. Not only is it pretty expensive up there, as beautiful as it is not exactly where you want to be as a COD pro. And this is why, as the guys are saying, I don't know how Vancouver does it. I would have been forfeiting if I were them, because we know that the FaZe guys based out of Atlanta, they did pretty well out of there over the last few years. And then you've got most of the teams out of Dallas having a great time as well. Now, that's where they want to be to play competitive Call of Duty. You're near the other players, your practice is better, and it should make your performances at the majors better as well. And there is a reason why that Vancouver Surge team, it was kind of a known thing that they would not be sticking together at the end of this season, as well as they had done. Even if Vancouver won the World Cup, I still don't think they were staying together. I mean, maybe champs would have been a different story, right? But even if they won like one of those events at the end of the season, there was still a good chance that Surge simply couldn't pay them enough to keep them around, and they wanted to go to other teams anyway because they didn't want to play out of Vancouver. And that, it seems, is an issue for Surge, trying to attract some talent, because a lot of the top players don't want to go there because they don't want to have to relocate. They would prefer to stay where they are. And yeah, the players almost every year, they're moving apartments, right? But a lot of the time they can still stay in Dallas. And the Thieves guys, there was a talk that they might be staying in LA initially. But then, when they got the offer from Gentlemates last year, Gentlemates were saying, look, we'll put you up in Texas. So Natured also had to say, all right, fair enough, we'll do the same thing, because that's what the players want to do. So for organizations that don't do that, you know, you can still win, you can still have success, you can still be very competitive. Like the Toronto guys are based up in Toronto. That works out perfectly well for them. They've got good ping up there, you know, they've got the Bell Fibe or whatever. They can play on they can play on like an Atlanta server or something, and that's okay for their matchups against Texas. So some places it can work, but Vancouver is a little bit out of it. So very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Just one final thing I'll mention here. As I said yesterday, easyMac has been putting some of the stats on from some of the older Call of Duty seasons that we've not had on the Breaking Point site so far. This is the 2019 Call of Duty World Championship Grand Final. It went Game 5. It was, in the end, it was a 1-0 result for E United because it was potentially a double best of 5, but E United won it in the end. Octane was in the replies here saying, damn, I got kind of costed, right? Because if you look at the overall numbers, Octane had a 1.3 for the loss in this first series of the Grand Finals, which is the only series that was necessary for E United to take the win because they came through winners. So yeah, it feels like quite a long time ago at this point, but this was Simp's debut season in the CDL where he won the MVP and the World Championship at the first time of asking. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.